Chapter 1 Autobiography. Once, upon the Great Master's arrival at the Baoling Temple, Prefect Wei of Shaozhou together with other officials visited the monastery and invited him to teach Dharma publicly at the lecture hall of the Dafan Temple in town. After the master was seated, his guests, more than 30 officials, 30 Confucians, and 1,000 monastics and lay people, paid homage to him and requested him to teach the essentials of Dharma. The master instructed, "My Dharma friends, our intrinsic nature is pure by essence. Rely on it, and you will directly get enlightened and attain Buddhahood. My Dharma friends, please allow me to tell you how I obtained Dharma. My father, a native of Fanyang County, was deprived of his official status and banished to Xinzhou, Lingnan, as a mere commoner. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was young, leaving my mother and me in a dire situation. Impoverished, we moved to Nanhai and made a living by collecting and selling firewood. One day, someone bought my firewood and asked me to send it to his shop. I went to the shop and was paid there. Just as I was about to leave, I saw a customer chanting a sutra. On hearing it, I was suddenly enlightened. So I asked him what sutra he was chanting. He said, "The Diamond Sutra." I then asked him where he was from and how he got this sutra. He replied, "I came from the Dongchan Temple in Huangmei, Qizhou. The fifth Patriarch Master Hongren presides there with more than 1,000 followers. I paid a visit there and received the teachings on this sutra. He often advised monastics and the laity to chant the Diamond Sutra, which would lead directly to your intrinsic nature and Buddhahood." After hearing this, I decided to visit him. Luckily, another customer, who may be karmically connected to me, sponsored my trip and my mother's livelihood. After making proper arrangements for my mother, I took my leave. In less than 30 days, I arrived in Huangmei and paid homage to the Patriarch. The Patriarch then asked, "Where are you from and what do you want from me?" I replied, "I am a commoner from Xinzhou in Lingnan. I came all this way for nothing but the attainment of Buddhahood." He said, "How can you, a barbarian from Lingnan, expect to attain Buddhahood?" I replied, "The Buddha nature has nothing to do with where a man is from, be it the south or the north. A barbarian and your most venerable may differ in appearance, but not in Buddha nature." Despite his willingness to carry on the dialogue, he restrained it due to the presence of his disciples, and ordered me to join the group in monastic tours instead. But I continued, "Most venerable, I delight to tell you that wisdom often arises in my mind, which never deviates from intrinsic nature. And this is exactly the state that produces merits for spiritual practice. So I'm wondering what the point is." The fifth Patriarch thought, This barbarian has really sharp faculty for Dharma. He stops me and said, "Stay no more, go to work in the backyard." Then I went there, and a monastic member ordered me to split the firewood and mill the rice. About 8 months later, the fifth patriarch suddenly came to me and said, "I didn't acknowledge your words back then, which were insightful, because I fear that some villains might do you harm. Did you know my intention at that time?" I replied, "Yes, I knew. That's why I didn't dare to approach you lest I should attract attention." Another day, the Patriarch summoned all his disciples and declared, "Listen, to be freed from the cycle of birth and death is paramount. However, instead of spiritual liberation, most of you have been pursuing nothing but merits. How can merits free you if intrinsic nature is not realized? Now each of you try to contemplate on the wisdom and intrinsic nature in you, and put the results of your contemplation in a poem and show me. If your poem corresponds with the truth, I will pass you the robe, the symbol of the Dharmic lineage, making you the sixth patriarch. Do as I said now, no delay. Deliberate conceptualization is of no use. One can realize intrinsic nature at any possible time, even in a battlefield with a sword in his hand." Having received these instructions, the disciples retreated and discussed, "We don't have to make great efforts to compose the assigned poem, since Elder Shen Xiu, our instructor, is bound to be the successor. Even if we try, our efforts would be in vain." On hearing this, all decided likewise. We cannot compete with our instructor Shen Xiu, the most promising candidate. Why bother trying? At this moment, Shen Xiu thought, "Others have given up out of respect to me as their instructor, so I must give it a try. If I don't, how can the most venerable evaluate my insights into Dharma? If I do, so long as I am after the Dharma, my intention will be wholesome. If I'm after the title of Patriarch, my intention will be as unwholesome as someone pretending to be enlightened. But if I don't, I may miss the chance to hold the lineage. What a dilemma." In front of the hall of the fifth patriarch, there was a 3-room-sized corridor reserved for the illustrations of Lankavatara Sutra and the lineage of the 5 patriarchs for future veneration by the painter Lu Zhen. Upon completion of the task, Shen Xiu went there several times, trying to submit his composed poem, but he failed. He was nervous and hastened with sweat all over. He repeated this for 4 days with 13 failed attempts. Then a thought came to him. Maybe I can just write down the poem on the wall of the corridor, since the most venerable will definitely see when he passes by. If he approves it, I will show up and humbly claim it. If, however, it fails to meet the standard, I have to admit that I have spent all these years in the mountain in vain, receiving undeserved respect. It would be pointless to continue my practice. So, at midnight, a lamp in one hand, he secretly wrote down his insights on the wall of the south corridor. The poem went, "My body is like a Bodhi tree, and my mind a dressing mirror, which needs to be constantly cleaned, so that no dust accumulates." After finishing the writing, he returned to his room. No one knew what he did. Yet, he had another thought. If the Patriarch delights in the poem, it means I'm on the right path of Dharma. If disapproved, I will know that I'm still deluded and full of defilements, which disqualifies me from inheriting the title. I wonder what he will say. He aches to know the results, and this anxiety keeps him restless till the daybreak. Meanwhile, the Patriarch already knew that Shen Xiu didn't realize the intrinsic nature. At dawn, the Patriarch called the artist Lu to start the paintings, only to find out that the wall had been occupied by a poem. So he apologized to the artist. It seems that no illustrations are needed for veneration anymore. Really sorry for the trouble of coming all the way. As the Sutra says, all phenomena are illusory. Instead of the paintings, let's keep the poem to facilitate everyone's practice. It can prevent its practitioners from getting reborn in the lower realms and bring them great benefits. Then the disciples were told to pay tribute to the poem with burning incense and recite it devoutly, so that they can realize intrinsic nature. They recited it as told and unanimously praised it. At midnight, the Patriarch summoned Shen Xiu to his room and asked, "Is the poem written by you?" Shen Xiu answered, "Yes, it was me who wrote it, but I didn't do it for the title. What I really wanted was your kind evaluation of my insights." The Patriarch said, "The poem shows that you haven't realized intrinsic nature. You are at the threshold, but haven't crossed it yet. It's impossible for you to attain the supreme enlightenment with such a view. To realize, here and now, your intrinsic nature, which neither arises nor ceases, is the way to obtain the supreme enlightenment. Intrinsic nature manifests itself through moment-by-moment thoughts. All phenomena are connected without hindrance, so the reality in one exists in all. The intrinsic nature of all is what it truly is, and such state of mind is the reality. When so realized, one has truly realized the very intrinsic nature, which is called the supreme enlightenment. Now go back and compose a new one in a few days. If you get it right this time, I will pass you the robe, the symbol of this lineage." After showing due courtesy, Shen Xiu left. The next several days saw him still struggling to come up with a better poem. Hence, disturbed and distracted as if he were sleepwalking, he couldn't enjoy a single moment of his life. 2 days later, a boy was reciting that poem when he passed by the rice mill. On hearing the poem, I could immediately tell that its writer had not realized intrinsic nature. On the other hand, I have a general idea of what Dharma is despite the fact that I have not received any teaching from the master. Then I asked the boy what he was reciting. The boy replied, "You barbarian don't know. The master said what is paramount is to be free from the cycle of birth and death. So he ordered each disciple to compose a poem on their insight into intrinsic nature and show it to him. If any poem reveals a significant insight, its author will receive the symbolic robe, which will make him the 6th Patriarch. Elder Shen Xiu has already written a formalist poem on the wall of the South Corridor, and the master ordered others to practice accordingly. In so doing, its reciters will avoid rebirth in the lower realms and gain significant benefits." Then I said, "I'd also like to recite that poem for a better rebirth. However, my good friend, I haven't even approached the master's chamber since I started working in the mill 8 months ago. Could you please take me there to pay tributes to the poem?" Then the boy led me to the poem, to which I bowed, and I said, "I cannot read. Couldn't any friend read it for me?" At that moment, a government official named Zhang Riyong from Jiangzhou happened to be there, so he read it aloud to me. After hearing it, I said to him, "I also have a poem. Could you please write it down for me?" The official was surprised. "You write poems? Unbelievable." I retorted, "A practitioner aimed at the supreme enlightenment shall never belittle a beginner. People low in social status may have supreme wisdom, while those at the top of social hierarchy may sometimes lose their wisdom. Belittling others will result in immeasurable unwholesome karma." The official responded, "All right, please share with me your poem and I will write it down for you. Once you gain spiritual fruits, you have to deliver me first. This is our due." The poem reads, "The Bodhi tree and the mirror are nothing but designations. Ultimately, they do not exist, let alone a place to collect the dust." The poem shocked everyone present, and they all exclaimed, "Amazing! We shall never judge a person by his appearance. Since when has he transformed into a living Bodhisattva?" The Patriarch was afraid that such admiration for my poem might cause someone to harm me. So he rubbed it off with his shoe and commented, "This poem shows no realization of intrinsic nature either." And the disciples agreed. The next day, the Patriarch sneaked into the mill where I worked. When he saw that I was husking the rice with a stone fastened to my waist, he remarked, "A Dharma seeker is supposed to dedicate himself to Dharma without much physical concerns, isn't he?" and he continued, "Is the rice fully husked?" I replied, "The husks have been removed already, but I still need to shift them out." Then he struck the mortar 3 times with his staff and left. Immediately, I understood what he meant. Keeping his secret message in mind, I went to his chamber when the night watch hit the drum 3 times, tolling the time of the night. He gave me a private lecture on the Diamond Sutra under the cover of his robe. Upon hearing the sentence of "use your mind responsibly without any attachment," I suddenly had a thorough realization that nothing is apart from intrinsic nature. I summarize my realization as follows. Intrinsic nature is pure in itself all along. Intrinsic nature never arises nor ceases. Intrinsic nature is self-contained all along. Intrinsic nature never changes. Intrinsic nature manifests everything all along. Acknowledging my enlightenment, he said, "If whatever you learned does not lead to intrinsic nature, such learning amounts to nothing. If you have realized intrinsic nature, you deserve the titles of spiritual mentor, teacher of deities and humans, and Buddha." Then, unknown to others at midnight, I received the teaching of sudden enlightenment along with the robe and the bow. The Patriarch said, "Now you are the 6th Patriarch, so always stay mindful and dedicate yourself to the liberation of sentient beings and the spread of this teaching so that it will not disappear. Listen to this poem. In the fertile field of sentient beings' minds, Dharma seeds shall be sown, where Buddha fruits will ripen eventually, whereas non-sentient beings, like barren fields, never possess the potential to bear Buddha fruits." The Patriarch continued, "When Master Bodhidharma, the first Patriarch, arrived in China, nobody trusted him. So he showed Buddha's robe to legitimize his lineage and ordered his disciples to pass it down. Dharma, however, can only be transmitted through one mind illuminating another, with the latter to be transformed on its own. Traditionally, the teaching of original mind was transmitted between Buddhas and masters in an esoteric manner. The robe is the cause of conflict, so the practice of passing it shall end with you. Otherwise, the life of its bearer will be endangered. Run for your life, lest people will harm you." Then I asked, "Where am I supposed to go?" The Patriarch replied, "Don't go further once you reach Huaiji and lay low in a place called Sihui." At that midnight, I received the robe, the bow, and then asked, "I'm not a local here. I may get lost on my way to the ferry." The 5th Patriarch replied, "Don't worry, I will take you there." The Patriarch took me all the way to the ferry of Jiujiang. He told me to get on the boat, and then he started to row the boat. I told him, "Master, please take a seat. Let me do the rowing." And he said, "Let me be your ferryman." I replied, "If a disciple is deluded, he needs a ferryman to cross over to the other shore. Once the disciple is enlightened, he can be his own ferryman." Though used many times, ferryman bears different meanings. I was born in an uncivilized place and hence considered vulgar. Regardless, you took me as your disciple and taught me Dharma. Now I am enlightened. I shall cross over to the other shore by myself through intrinsic nature. The Patriarch praised, "Right, right. From now on, you shall shoulder the burden of popularizing the Dharma. I still have 3 more years to live after your departure. Now, have a good journey and try to get to the south. You'd better not start teaching Dharma too soon, because it's difficult to be accepted without conditions." After bidding farewell to the Patriarch, I set off for the south. 2 months later, I arrived at Dayu Mountain. Since the Patriarch returned to the monastery, he had been absent from the services for several days. The disciples were concerned and asked, "Most Venerable, have you been feeling sick or upset?" The Patriarch said, "I'm fine, but my robe and Dharma have been taken to the south." Then they asked, "Who took them?" The Patriarch answered in a pun, "The capable one." Hearing this, everyone came to realize who he was referring to. Soon, hundreds of people started their hunting in an attempt to take the robe and the bow. One of the monks, Huiming, previously a violent general and surnamed Chen, was so anxious to catch me that he was the one who tracked me down. Having sensed the danger, I placed the robe and the bow on a rock and said, "How could be the robe be taken by force, since it represents Dharma?" Then I hid myself in the grass. Huiming ran up to the robe and the bow, but failed to pick them up. So he called, Sir, I did not come for the robe. I came for Dharma." Then I came out and sat on the rock in a lotus position. Huiming spoke to me with a gesture of courtesy. "May I receive some teaching from you, sir?" I said, "If you truly come for Dharma, detach your mind from any distraction and thought. Then I will teach you." After a while, I started. "When neither the wholesome nor the unwholesome arise in your mind, who exactly are you at that moment?" On hearing this, Huiming gained a profound insight, and then he continued to ask, "Besides these esoteric words, what else can you teach me?" I said, "Anything that can verbally talk to you is no longer esoteric. Once you direct your attention inward, you will find the esoteric." Huiming replied, "I have been practicing in Huangmei for a long time, but I have not realized who exactly I am. Thanks to your guidance, now I have. It's something that can only be experienced by oneself. This is like only by drinking it can you know whether the water is hot or cold. You are truly my master." I said, We are merely Dharma brothers under the same master in Huangmei. If you have truly realized who exactly you are, you can rely on yourself then. Huiming asked further, Then where shall I go now? I replied, Stop at Yuan and stay at Meng. Then Huiming thanked me and left. When Huiming returned to the foot of the mountain, he told the other chasers, Just now I climbed up there and even searched the pathless places, but I have found no trace of him. We'd better try somewhere else. Everyone believed him. Since Huiming and Huineng share the same character in their names, the former changed his name into Daoming out of his respect to Master Huineng. After I arrived in Caoxi, I was still chased by the vicious, so I hid myself in a group of hunters in Sihui for about 15 years. During that time, I would share Dharma with them whenever appropriate. The hunters asked me to keep an eye on the snares. I would always set the animals free whenever they were caught. For meals, I had to add vegetarian food alongside the meat in their pot. My behavior made them curious, so I would stress, I am a vegetarian. One day, it occurred to me that I could not keep hiding like this forever. It was time for me to start teaching. So I set off and later arrived at Faxing Temple in Guangzhou, where Venerable Yinzong was teaching the Mahaparinirvana Sutra then. At that moment, a banner was wavering in the breeze. Over this, two monks started an argument on what exactly was moving. One may think it was the breeze while the other insisted it was the banner. Then I waved in. It was neither the breeze nor the banner, but it was your mind that moved. Everyone was amazed by my words. Even Venerable Yinzong invited me to take the seat of honor and asked me some challenging questions. Impressed by my concise and plain answers, he asked me, You must be somebody I heard a long time ago, and the inheritor of the robe and dharma of Huangmei had reached the south. Is it you? I replied, Well, I'm unworthy of that title. Then he greeted me politely and requested a display of the robe and the bow. He then continued, What teaching did you receive from the fifth Patriarch in Huangmei? I answered, He taught me nothing but realization of intrinsic nature. Meditative concentration and liberation find no place in his teaching. He asked in surprise, They don't? Why? I explained, They fall into duality, which goes against Dharma. The real Dharma is of non-duality. He went on, What do you mean by non-duality? I replied, It is Buddha nature according to Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the very scripture you are teaching. For example, in the sutra, lofty virtuous King Bodhisattva asked Buddha, Is it true that some beings are deprived of Buddha nature, such as ordained transgressors of 4 major precepts, violators of the 5 extreme violations, and ekantika? The Buddha replied, "There are two wholesome roots, one being permanent and the other impermanent. Yet Buddha nature is neither, and cannot be deprived of, hence non-duality. Things can be wholesome or unwholesome, but Buddha nature belongs to neither, hence non-duality. The unenlightened hold a dualistic view on aggregates and elements, but the wise well understand their non-dualistic nature, which is exactly Buddha nature." Happy with what I said, Venerable Yinzong joined his palms and praised, "My teaching is like debris, while yours is like pure gold." Then he shaved my hair to make me a monk. Instead of his disciple, he treated me as his master. Then, under the Bodhi tree, I started to disseminate the teaching from East Mountain, Huangmei. East Mountain was the place where I received this teaching despite hardship and life-threatening danger. Today, the reason we are here to listen to this teaching of sudden enlightenment is because of merits we have accumulated for eons, or because of the wholesome rules resulting from making offerings to Buddhas in the past. This teaching was passed down from previous sages, not something invented by me. Those who are eager to hear the teaching, clear your mind first. If your doubts are cleared after hearing this, you will be on a par with previous sages. The audience rejoiced over the Dharma talk and left after making a gesture of courtesy.